You won't believe what he gave me for our anniversary. A slap across the face, and the funds to destroy him. It was our 3rd wedding anniversary, and I was so excited. I had spent weeks planning everything. I booked a table at the same restaurant where he had asked me to marry him. I even ordered his favorite wine from another city. I wrote a letter by hand, poured my heart into it, and secretly placed it in the pocket of his jacket. I really wanted this night to be special. But when he came home, something was wrong. He didn't smile. He didn't even really look at me. It was like I didn't exist. His eyes were cold, so cold they made me feel like I was standing in a room with a stranger, not my husband. I tried to hide how hurt I was. Maybe he had a tough day, I thought. Maybe he was just tired or worried about work. Still, it made my heart sink. This was supposed to be a happy night, a celebration of our love. I had imagined he'd walk in, kiss me, and say how excited he was. But he didn't. There was no warmth in him, just silence and distance. I stood there, feeling awkward, like I had made a mistake by caring so much about this day. As I watched him walk past me without saying anything, I felt a knot form in my stomach. I tried to shake it off. Maybe things would get better during dinner. Maybe he just needed a moment to relax. But deep down, I already knew. Something had changed. This wasn't the man I married. That cold look in his eyes said more than words ever could. And it was only the beginning. I tried not to overthink it. Maybe he was just stressed from work. I told myself not to ruin the evening and kept the mood light. I talked about little things, funny moments from the week, a new show we could watch, memories from our past anniversaries. He barely responded. When he did speak, it was short, dry, and sometimes sarcastic. I laughed it off, pretending it didn't sting. But inside, I felt like I was talking to a wall. When it was time to exchange gifts, I smiled and handed him. I had spent weeks getting it made, a custom watch he once said he loved. I was excited to see his reaction. He opened the box, glanced at it, and said a quiet thanks. No smile, no warmth. He didn't even try to hide his disinterest. Then he pulled a small, black box from his pocket and placed it in front of me. I opened it slowly. Inside were diamond earrings. They sparkled under the light, clearly expensive, clearly meant to impress. But something felt off. There was no meaning behind them. No thought. No message. Just cold, perfect stones. I looked at him, trying to find a clue in his face. But he was already looking away, as if the moment meant nothing. The earrings were beautiful, yes. But they didn't feel like love. They felt like something he gave to cover something up. Like a payment. Like guilt. And that made my heart feel heavier than ever. I kept trying to stay calm and make the night feel normal. I smiled through the silence, tried to enjoy the food, and forced myself to act like everything was fine. But inside, I felt like I was sitting next to a stranger. The tension at the table was so heavy, I could barely swallow my food. Every second felt longer than the last. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I looked at him and softly asked, "Is everything okay between us?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him. I just wanted to understand what was going on. But instead of answering with kindness or even frustration, he snapped. He started yelling, his voice sharp and full of anger. He threw words at me like knives, things that made no sense, things that hurt. He blamed me for things I didn't even do. It was like he had been holding it in, waiting for a chance to let it all out. I sat there frozen. I didn't know how it had gone so wrong so fast. And then, before I could say a word back, he hit me. A hard backhand across my face. My head turned from the impact, and everything stopped. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in shock. But it wasn't the slap that broke me. It was what came after. Nothing. No look of shock on his face. No apology. No fear. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't even look at me like he cared. His eyes stayed cold, as if he hadn't just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. And in that silence, something inside me cracked. I got up slowly and walked away without saying a word. I went into the bathroom and closed the door behind me. I looked in the mirror and saw the red mark forming on my cheek. It was still fresh, and my skin felt hot where his hand had landed. I touched it gently, but it wasn't the pain that held my focus. It was the way I felt inside, calm, but no longer the same. Something changed in that moment. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel weak. I felt clear. Like I had finally seen the truth for what it was, and there was no turning back. All the years of hoping, trying, forgiving, making excuses, they stopped mattering. What mattered now was what I needed to do next. I didn't cry. I didn't feel the need to ask why. I just knew that I couldn't stay, not a minute longer. I took one last look at my reflection, straightened my clothes, and stepped out of the bathroom. He was still sitting at the table, silent, not even looking at me. I didn't speak to him. I didn't give him a single word. I walked to the door, picked up my coat, and left. No fight, no tears. Just quiet steps out of the place that used to feel like home. It was over for me the second I saw that look in his eyes. And from that moment on, every step I took was towards something better. I didn't know what would come next, but I knew it had to start with leaving. The next morning, I went back to the house while he was at work. I didn't waste any time. I just wanted to take what I needed and leave for good. I moved quickly, folding clothes, packing my essentials, keeping everything simple. The silence in the house felt different now. It wasn't sad anymore, it was peaceful. As I reached for the small box that had held the earrings, something caught my eye. A folded piece of paper was tucked behind it. Curious, I picked it up and unfolded it. It was a receipt. A high-end jewelry store. $3,200. Paid in cash. My eyes scanned every detail, and then I just stood there, holding it, a small smile forming on my face. He had no idea what he had done. That expensive gift, the one he gave so carelessly, now held a different kind of value. Not emotional, not romantic, just practical. That receipt was more than proof of a purchase. It was a tool. He thought those earrings would cover his guilt or maybe distract me. But instead, they gave me power. I held the paper a little tighter, knowing exactly what I would do next. It was almost funny. He had tried to buy silence, but he ended up funding something else entirely. Something he never saw coming. That small piece of paper felt like the start of a plan. One that would change everything. I took the receipt and walked straight into a law office. It was one of the best firms in the city, with a serious, quiet lobby and polished wooden doors. I didn't make an appointment. I didn't call ahead. I just walked in, calm and sure of what I needed to do. A woman at the front desk asked if I needed help. I nodded and told her I needed to speak to a lawyer. She led me into a small office where a woman in a dark suit sat behind a desk. I didn't wait for small talk. I reached into my bag, pulled out the receipt, and placed it gently on the table in front of her. "Can this be a retainer?" I asked. She glanced down at the paper, raised one eyebrow, and then looked back at me. "Absolutely," she said, as if she'd seen this kind of thing before. I sat down and began to talk. I told her what happened, everything. I explained the night before, how it went from cold silence to violence. I talked about the earrings, the way they felt wrong, and then the receipt I found behind the box. I didn't hold anything back. I wanted her to know the whole truth. She didn't interrupt. She didn't look shocked or uncomfortable. She just nodded now and then, scribbling notes as I spoke. It felt strange, how easy it was to talk to someone who didn't need to be convinced. She understood. She was already thinking ahead, asking questions that showed she was ready to act. Before I even left that office, the first steps had already started. She explained the process, what I needed to collect, and what would happen next. It was real now. The fight had begun, not with yelling or crying, but with facts, steps, and quiet strength. And it all started with a single piece of paper. I became focused, calm but sharp. I started going through everything carefully, one step at a time. I opened old folders, scrolled through messages, searched emails, and checked bank accounts. I looked at every little thing I used to ignore. All the signs that once made me uncomfortable, I now paid full attention to. Late-night messages, strange transactions, saved contacts with no names, and pictures that didn't belong. Everything started making sense. I began saving screenshots, printing records, and organizing it all into files. It wasn't just about proving the truth. It was about being prepared. Every detail I found made my case stronger. Things I once told myself not to worry about now had new meaning. I wasn't trying to save anything anymore. I was building something, a wall he couldn't break through. Every time I discovered more, I felt more sure of what I was doing. The earrings, the ones that once sat in that little black box, didn't stay with me. I took them back to the store. Got a full refund, no questions asked. I didn't feel sad. I didn't hesitate. That money had a new purpose now. What was once meant to cover his guilt had become my tool for justice. It was almost poetic. He gave me a gift, but it was never really for me. In the end, it became something I used to protect myself. And I was just getting started. A few weeks passed as I kept working with my lawyer, quietly building everything. Then the day came. He was served at his office, right in front of the people he worked with. The documents were handed to him while he stood at his desk. His coworkers saw it all. I wasn't there, but I imagined the shock on his face, the confusion, the embarrassment. It was no longer something he could hide or control. Not long after, my phone rang. It was him. I didn't answer. I watched the screen, listening to it buzz in my hand. He called again and again. I finally checked the voicemail. His voice was shaking. He was angry, trying to sound strong, but I could hear it. He was scared. Scared of losing everything he thought he had under control. Still, I didn't call back. I typed one simple message and sent it to him. "You raised your hand once. I raised an army in return." That was all. I said nothing else. He didn't respond. For the first time, he stayed quiet. No yelling, no blaming, just silence. And this time, that silence didn't hurt me. It didn't make me feel small. It made me feel powerful. It was the kind of silence that brings peace. The kind that feels like justice. The court date came quicker than I expected. I sat beside my lawyer, calm but ready. Everything we had worked on was in order, neatly arranged, carefully prepared. When it was our turn, she stood and began to speak. Her voice was firm, steady, and clear. She laid out every detail, when things happened, what was said, what was found. Each point was backed up with proof. She showed the photos. She read the messages. She shared the bank record. Then came the receipt, the one that started it all. I watched as it all unfolded in front of the judge. The truth was no longer just something I knew. Now, everyone in that room knew it too. I glanced at him once during the hearing. His face had gone pale. He didn't look angry this time. He looked small, like he didn't know how it had all fallen apart so fast. His hands stayed on the table, and he didn't say much. Even his lawyer didn't try to defend him with much energy. It was as if he knew there was nothing to say. The judge listened carefully, but showed no surprise. There were no long speeches, no drawn-out drama, just decisions, clear and final. The judge granted everything, first the restraining order, then the divorce. Then came the financial ruling, and it was fully in my favor. It all felt fast, but not rushed. It was simply what was fair. As I stood up to leave, I saw one last thing. His lawyer looked at him, then down at the table, like even he didn't respect the man sitting next to him. That moment didn't bring me joy, but it brought me peace. The truth had done its job. And now I was free. Now I live in a small apartment. It's not fancy, but it's quiet, and it's mine. Every morning, I wake up without fear. I make my own coffee, sit by the window, and feel peace I never knew I needed. There's no shouting, no walking on eggshells, no pretending everything is okay. Just calm. I don't think about him often, but sometimes the memories come back. Not in a way that breaks me, more like a reminder of who I was and who I became. The mark he left isn't something people can see. It's inside, but it's not weakness. It's strength. It tells me I survived something I once thought I couldn't. He believed that one act would break me, that it would keep me quiet, keep me in place. But it did the opposite. That night didn't destroy me. It woke me up. It made me see the truth I had ignored for too long. It pushed me to act, to fight back in my own way. And what's strange is the money he used to try and impress me, the money he thought would cover his mistake, ended up being the very thing that helped me walk away. I used it to take control of my life. I used it to close the door on that chapter for good. Now, every time I see that peaceful sky outside my window, I know I made the right choice. I didn't just survive what happened, I changed because of it. And the life I'm building now? It's mine, fully mine. No more pretending. No more waiting for someone to treat me right. I treat myself right. I choose peace. I choose freedom. And that's a gift I gave myself.